So before change managers start, they need to ask a question, then to study the organization that they are going to change. So the questions that they have to ask are the following. Why do we need the change? Could it be because we need to improve efficiency? Could it be scalability? Could it be employee engagement? Why do we need the change? What is the problem? Where is this change going to take us? So, can we get tedious tasks done quicker? Could we focus on more important things? Will it reach a broader market if you're talking about client engagement, how to attract more clients to your organizations or customers, even better customer service or consulting practices? And what level of change do we need? Do we need a full organization change? Do we need a sector change and only the departments? Which departments need the change and why? And how are we going to get there? So it's very important that they set a clear goal that employees can make sense of, and a realistic goal, something that you can accomplish. For example, in 3 months we want to see this, in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years. What can we do as an individual and a group level?
Yeah, I think Nora, this is a very important slide, and as you can probably discuss more about. Hey, look, if you have a life cycle, right? If you have a project life cycle, if you have a life cycle of a software, if you have a life cycle of, say, an organization, right? Whichever level you look at, I think this slide really addresses the need to have the similar conversation with AI. It's that you have to have a long-term strategic visions, and you have to kind of reverse engineer from there to say, like, how do we stay on track? How do we meet the benchmark so that way we're not really going off track? And if we were, how do we pivot and ask ourselves few questions so that way we can justify? So it's always that, like, literally, I would say core component of this discussion always is that strategic value, strategic vision that you have, say 5 years from now, and then you reverse engineer from there to say these are the benchmarks that we will need in order to meet that strategic vision. And in this stage, in the present moment, we really have to financially justify it, right? What is the financial outcome of these decisions 5 years from now? And what are the losses that we take, or what are the gains that we have in this benchmark that we look at? So why do we need the change? I think, if a manager was to look at it from the perspective of AI, well, the manager has to ask a lot more than just AI. They have to ask the fact that I have these many workers today, and I'm expecting to have these many workers in coming days. And that's just not a question of one single manager. All the managers are going through the same dilemma today. That if they have a staff of 50 today, they will not have those staff of 55 years from now. They will definitely have that decrease on those staffs, right? Because there's not that many pool of people that are in the workforce working, right? So, what level of changes do we need? Do we need to, have AI adopted? Do we need to subscribe to an AI? Do we need to bring in an AI that is, half and half, like part of it I want, somebody else owns the rest of it, or they want they own the hardware and I own the software? You really have to have these levels of conversations to say, we've done this something previously with IT, but how does it work with AI? And what are some of those nuanced changes that we have to really consider for going forward in our workforce? So, how will we get there? If that's the if that's the questions that somebody has to ask, um, really have to do your inventory today, right? You have to really understand that what you have today is what's going to propel you to tomorrow, and then as you move forward, what else needs to come? So I really think I like this chart a lot because this is what addresses these questions. And as we go technical side of things, this question comes up again because these technical questions that we have to ask, it really makes the difference in how much we end up spending, right? the business justification or financial justification behind it. If we were to spend, say, a few $100,000 versus a few $100 million, how do we make sure that we ask these questions on the technical side of things? Really have to look at our technical debt and say, this is how we justify it, and this is how we keep this benchmark in a certain cost level, so it doesn't bankrupt us in the next 5 years. And many organizations are very concerned with a lot of these questions, but financial justification, financial questions is at the core of all of it. So I think this is a very good slide. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for your input. I definitely think that financial means is a huge part of what an organization can do. You know, how large of a scale can they implement AI? Can they implement it in just one sector, or can they implement it everywhere? And what is it for, all tasks or just for certain tasks? What did they need it for? And there's planned change and there's unplanned changes. Something just happened. Like for example, COVID. That was an unplanned change. It came and everyone had to adapt in a short period of time. So asking these questions for both planned and unplanned situations can really help managers and leaders to implement change successfully. And also, like, setting a goal. What is the goal here? We need to get people on board, make a team. What softwares are we going to use to make our job better? And what are the expected outcomes? Efficient resource allocations, better personalized services for clients and employee engagement, training and development, reduced costs, as you mentioned, can also be a thing of the expected outcomes, reduce our cost. And an improved work-life balance. These are just some things that we can, expect in an organization to implement into their policies. So any other input or comments before we move on?
Yeah, I think Desi just stepped away for a second, but we can move to the next
No
slide. But I
problem.
do like the slide. This is a good slide.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So before we can implement AI, I always like to look at, the benefits of AI. We can enhance our communication, our workload management, because a lot of people are getting burned out from the amount of workload that they have to put. So like what I mentioned previously, what are the expected outcomes? And improved work-life balance can be a great expected outcome. To monitor your budgets, your expenses, as we mentioned, finance is a huge part of what an organization can do. Improved training plans to get employee on board. So we want to try and make personalized plans and upskilling initiatives. So if you want to implement AI into your organization, you have to upskill these employees to know how to use AI. I like to think about it as, for change management or anyone using AI in an organization, I kind of like to think about it as like a pilot. A pilot doesn't necessarily know how to engineer a plane, but they know how to drive it. They know how to fly it and get you to your destination safely. So within change management, I feel like that's a great example. A metaphor of change managers is that they don't necessarily have to know how to make AI algorithms and machine learning and all that thing, but they know how to implement it successfully in an organization. So that can be, a huge benefit.
And one, if I may, one of the examples that I always use in machine learning conversation is that you don't have to learn how to use a microwave because you already know how to use a microwave. But if you want to become really the chef extraordinary, whatever that word is, sorry, skipping my tongue right now. If you really want to become like a subject matter expert on how to use a microwave, you really have to spend a lot of time using that microwave and figuring out variables that you have to put the heats on the food, right? Or try different frozen food. So you really have the skill sets, the skill levels of people that use a microwave. But there's certain type of people that can build a microwave from scratch, right? They can go out and get the parts, the rare earth elements, put all the pieces together and manufacture that microwave, and then send it off to somebody's house and put it in their kitchen, right? So microwave is a good analogy for me because we all know how to use microwave, but not everybody needs to be a subject matter expert in how to cook in a microwave. And then there's very few amount of people that can actually put a microwave together, right? So
Yes.
we really need to identify who's doing what and how they're doing it, and is microwave the only option we have, right? So like you said, kind of like flying the plane. Well, everybody has their roles, but if everybody knew about each other's roles, we can all say, this is what you need. Actually, let me go ahead and get that for you before you even ask me about it. Because if you have to ask me, I'm already too late, right? Like the plane stewardess, they really need to know that plane is not ready to take off unless everybody's sitting down. And the pilot needs to know that in order to fly the plane, right? So you have those communication pieces that needs to happen, and AI can augment all of that, right? But if you don't have an AI, the way you do it today, if you were to observe it and say, line by line, I know who does what, and I know where communication is lacking. How can we include AI into that piece, right? What if that was the smallest use case of AI that we can get, and it doesn't cost that much money, or it doesn't destroy our daily workflow or our business operation on a continuous basis, right? So there's a whole lot of analogies, but I was thinking about the one that somebody said the other day that sometimes it's about jumping off the cliff and building a plane while you are flying in the air, right? There's a whole lot of ways to approach AI machine learning. But it's not really something that we should be intimidated by. It's the more of like what we have been doing. Let's accelerate what's good in what we've been doing, right? And if there's some bad that we have to address, maybe we'll have to spend more time addressing those bad workflow or bad operations using AI. But what's been working really great, how do we emphasize on that good, the great, and put more AI on top of it? Could be something that will lead that profit center to be more profitable, right? If there's a loss center on the other side, maybe that loss center will need more tender loving and care than we do, right? So you have all sorts of ways to approach AI, but communication, I think, is the bridge that AI really can help with, right? It's able to audit communications, it's able to keep this communication alive, it's able to feed real-time communication. And I think there's a whole lot of ways to discuss AI about communication and text, natural language processing, so on and so forth. But I'll let you continue because I just want to jump into that analogy of pilots in the airplane.
Yeah, definitely. I've been thinking about that metaphor, like, for a while now. I was like, that really makes sense to me. I like that. And that's kind of where the idea generations come from. When you collaborate with different team members, and AI can help you get new ideas for your organization as well. And then we have benefits as data analysis to understand the needs of employees and make better decisions. So I think that, you can also, for example, like, managers don't have the time to go and speak to every person in the organization and get their perspective on things. So with data analysis, you can compile all of that information, put it in a data set, and then, do your machine learning algorithms and data analysis things. And then you can put it into one visual and really see, okay, where's the problem? What are the positives and what are the negatives, and how can we make it better? So that's what I like about, data analysis, is that you can just get everyone's information in one file. And also it makes it efficient, instead of sending out surveys to everybody and then reading all of these surveys, you just, it's done quicker, and then change can be done faster.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so let's go to the psychology side now. I'm pretty sure Desi knows about this change model. We have I've done a project about it actually in my master's program, where we went through it and we had a case study. So, one of the things, step one, is to create a sense of urgency, to identify potential crises of major opportunities, discuss AI trends and competitive pressures. Now, everyone is using AI. You know, you can't really get away from it nowadays. It has to be in your organization in a way, some way or another. It kind of has to be. So that's definitely pressure going on to more organizations to know how do we implement it, because it's gonna happen, you know, today or tomorrow. You're gonna have to do it. And just highlight the benefits. As we mentioned before, the benefits of AI are immense. You can also form a powerful coalition, identify key stakeholders and leaders, establish a cross functional team to lead the changes, and ensure team commitment, which is a huge process, of uh, employee morale into the organization, and it gives the organization a whole level of success. And create a vision. People want to know, where are we going? If you have people lost, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know what the vision is, they don't know what the goal is, you're gonna lose money, lose time, and probably your best employees. And then communicate the vision, develop a clear strategy, ensure the vision is understandable and realistic in a way, and align the vision with the organization's values and culture. Okay.
Yeah, I think
Anyone?
depending on who's listening, you could think that team of five might not need a sense of urgency or form a powerful coalition, right?
Yeah, that's
Team
true.
dynamics of team of five versus team of 5,000 or 500 is far different. So if you are a team of five and you think of, okay, I'm a team of five, but how big is the rest of the team? When you have a medium-sized business or enterprise level businesses, one of the things that we would observe, we think of in team dynamics for our team, as in my direct report, right? Like, so if he's my supervisor, that's team of two, and my supervisor has three other employees, so that's team of five. And then the rest of the other teams are not necessarily team, they're other team that is near me that I have to, communicate with or collaborate with, whatever the case is. So when there's a team dynamic and that team dynamic doesn't address how an AI can help all the teams come together, we really need somebody with a high vision to say, I have about 100 people under me, and that's about 20 different teams, right? So how does this 20 different team have coalition effectively working within the teams? And then, what sort of changes would I like to see in these teams eventually, right? Um, this is a little bit off topic, but I think it's important that when we talk about teams, we really are talking about upskilling them for AI purposes. And a lot of the questions that big managers will ask, well, if they know AI, why would they work for me? Because they will go work for somebody else that has AI. Well, if you don't train them for AI and then they stay, and then now you're trying to do AI, like what kind of team member would that person be if that person didn't know anything about AI? It could be a whole lot of mixed reaction from that person that doesn't know anything about AI because as a manager, you chose not to train that person on AI, right? Whatever that kind of training it is, like I said, do you teach them how to use microwave better? Or do you just tell them to keep using the microwave that they've been using forever, right? Those are the different levels of upskilling we're talking about. So if you're upskilling somebody for the purposes of, say, I really want to retain the team of 100 and not lose anybody, one of the ways you can really come at it from is like enable that team of 100 people to know more about the business and have them buy into the business's goal, right? And business's goal that's going to be impacted by an AI, and they're the subject matter expert on that AI that helps that business goal, makes them really get involved in the business or the organization or the team or the missions of that team. So that way they're learning about an AI that's not necessarily AI for everybody everywhere in the world, right? It's the AI for that business specifically. So if you start there, you're taking a risk. Don't get me wrong, it is a risk, right? Because a lot of the managers have these fears about, like, okay, what happens in the AI world to me and my team, right? um, Team dynamic is a really broad spectrum of psychology, but I'm not going to get into that. But I think, you know having this understanding of what does the business need, what are the business goals, and what sort of changes will you have, and upskill the team based on those specific needs, I think brings the team together. Not necessarily just because of AI, but just that human collaboration for the AI purposes is far more better return on investment than none. I think we have to really talk through the psychology, how to implement an AI so that way it benefits the whole team, not just the one specific team that I'm part of, a team of five.
Yeah, definitely. And it will create a longer lasting, efficiency. Okay, moving on. So remove obstacles and barriers such as policies that might bring people down. You want to empower your employees to take action and make decisions for themselves. A lot of things for example, in leadership and psychology, one of the aspects that I really enjoy is giving people the power to make their own decisions. A leader isn't a leader who's going to sit and boss you around, but a leader is going to be someone who gives you the resources, the knowledge, and the support to make these important decisions. So it's like a two-way trust, kind of. And you also want to create short term wins. As I mentioned, set achievable and realistic short-term goals that a team, whether big or small, can reach. Because as humans, human behavior, we want to see things fast. If you don't see any changes happening, you're kind of gonna get demotivated. You're gonna lose your motivation. The adrenaline rush is gonna go down, and you're gonna start being burned out. So I think that is really important for a manager and whoever has the role of creating those short-term wins, whether it's by salary raise, whether it's by recognition, anything, just to like build up the momentum that as a team or as an individual we have to keep going. Build the change, analyze what went right and what needs improvement, plan for and implement additional AI projects. So like with the short-term wins, once those are reached, then we can keep going and plan for even more projects. And then we can anchor the changes in organizational culture by integrating AI practices into our organization. Ensure that leadership development and succession planning is done efficiently, and then reinforce the value of AI through training and support. So, upskilling. AI is growing. Today, it's one thing, tomorrow, it's going to be another thing. You might, like, for example, have you ever seen videos on Canva? You have full tutorials on how to use Canva. It's like your microwave analogy. It's a microwave, it's a presentation. No, you can do even more with Canva. So
Right.
it's kind of like, that within an organization is like, okay, we have to keep training and keep getting our teammates and our employees to stay motivated, to keep learning, to have a learning organization.
I want to tap into what you just said about more AIs that will come down the pipe, right? I think that Desi a few weeks ago presented on digital twin. Unless you're talking to somebody who's talking about digital twin, you're not going to run into digital twin, right? Nobody's going to bring
Yeah.
up digital twin to you unless you're most likely are really looking for something like digital twin. It's not going to click right away. It's a lengthy process. just like AI. People have been hearing about AI for 50, 70 some years, but not necessarily something that they had to really pay attention to. And then all of a sudden, now that they're thinking about adopting it, now really have to start the conversation and go through the process of exploring it. One piece that I often see goes missing is that, like, well, the AI that we have today, uh, where it is today and how it will be in the future, right? However it transforms in the future, is it sustainable and scalable for my business, right? For as me, the organizational leader, or head of the organization. If I was to buy an AI today, is it financially justifiable? Even if it's financially justifiable, can I scale it over time? Right? So sustainable means, sometimes it is about financial sustainability, but at the same time, can you scale on top of that AI? So if you look at the full ecosystem and you start with this simple AI right here, does this eventually move into the rest of the ecosystem? Or does this take this part of the ecosystem and creates a smaller ecosystem here and silos away from the rest of the ecosystem? Right? And we've seen that in organization happen a lot with data silos, right? AI silos are just going to be far more difficult to break out of than the data silos that we have developed in the last 30, 40 years, right? So if you look at the full ecosystem and you say, this scalable AI, the sustainable AI, how does it impact everything over time? Kind of leads into that digital twin conversation, right? Because this AI that we see today is very much text heavy, NLP heavy, Gen AI, right? Generative. It's generating what you send it, right? A funny way to say Gen AI is, make more, right? I give you something and you make more out of it, right? It doesn't understand what the context of things are based on the ecosystem that you have. So if you really are sensitive to your business process, your workflow, how your teams are able to perform and how great they are, and you don't want to change much, you have to look at a full ecosystem and say, where does this make more system contribute? And then where does this make more system plugs itself in through other technology of AI? Let's say, for example, digital twin. We have tons of other AIs that are like, not necessarily text based, but they have text as part of the ways of providing that solution. So I think you're capturing some of the points that it really needs to be unpacked with hours and minutes and days.
Yeah, and the thing with Cotter's 8 steps is it's long term. That's one of the cons about it, is it's long term. It's a planned change. So you really have to go through each step. If I think that, if one of the steps doesn't resonate with you, you can kind of skip it, kind of let it go. Just take the steps that fit for you and use it. But as I mentioned, this is a planned change model. There's other models in psychology that are used that are more unplanned, such as the freeze and unfreeze methods. Those two can also be implemented, but for this presentation, we're sticking with this one. Okay, moving on. So what can change management managers do for successful AI implementation into their organization? So one of the things that people always have a problem with is, employees don't want to change. So you kind of have to find a way to foster resilience in the face of change. Just like any new change happens, we kind of get nervous or stressed, such as with AI, people are worried that their job is going to be gone. What are they going to do? How is their future going to play out? How are they going to make a living? So that is one worry that they really have that can be, as we had last week with Cameron, her presentation kind of went through all of this, AI myths and how we as a society and as individuals can use AI to the best of our benefit. And that's kind of, resilience. So what you can focus on as a manager is to focus on what they will gain, not lose, and make sure that the gains are more than the losses. Also, you have to build an agile workforce that is high in employee morale. So employees, leaders, and managers have to create that environment of building people's expectations of what they will gain. And also, as we mentioned, is to recognize and reward effort, short-term efforts, long-term efforts, and reward them with personalized plans for employees. You know, what is going to keep this employee motivated? You really have to know that, and you can know that through data. And then you have to build trust. When employees see how AI is implemented and they feel the benefits, you have gained their trust, basically. Therefore, you're going to have a agile workforce who's going to trust the leader's decisions and have a two-way trust where the leader trusts the employees and the employees trust the leader.
I want to point out something that I've had to discuss, because it's not about AI. It's about just the way the business works these days, right? Um, and I always mention to you guys that there's about six generations of people in the same workforce. A single workforce has six generations of people. That means there's going to be a succession process that will happen, and that succession process is going to be very unique to comparison to the other
Going to
generations.
be
So
challenging.
it's going to be a huge challenge, right? Because each generation understands the business from a different perspective. So one of the things that keeps all businesses, no matter how many generations that there is trust, right? And the knowledge of an organization means that that trust comes through consistency and persistent information about that organization. How does people feel about that organization based on the knowledge that they're receiving, right? So to develop a trust, you have to consistently and persistently inform each individual member of the organization about the organizational knowledge, right? So you have a huge knowledge management issue. So if you were to develop a system of recognition and reward efforts, um, if somebody knows a lot about the organization, they do more about their organization, right? And that's what indicates that, okay, this person knows a lot about our organization and is doing a lot for our organization. So we're going to recognize, we're going to reward this person, right? So that kind of, everybody sees it. There's like, okay, there's a need for knowledge about this organization that I lack. I'm going to pursue that. But if I was to pursue it, this person was given this opportunity and I wasn't, right? Because kind of going back to that word you use, personalized, right? If is the person is able to train on their own time and train it based on their personal preferences, right? Say for example, audio and video. Some people really like to see videos, and your
Yes.
organization only has audio training. Well, what sort of training would that person get? Because they're only receiving some information. So, long story short, here is that we will have a complex generational gaps in the workforce, and not everybody learns and not everybody does knowledge management the same way. But AI, on the other hand, can do knowledge management in three, four, five, six, seven different ways based on each personal need of each individual. So they can select and choose. So, say for example, a person who migrated from China and speaks Chinese Mandarin, would that person prefer to learn by your organization on Chinese Mandarin? Do you have that capability available, or can AI do that for you? Right? And AI is very well known for translating stuff, right? Like it's really good at translating, and it's really good at personalizing a training for a person who speaks Chinese Mandarin, right? But even if it's in English, how does the English changes to a point that it caters to somebody's understanding that English is their foreign language? I mean, English is their second language. I speak 4 or 5 different languages. I would love to see my English training change based on the languages that I speak, right? So AI brings a whole lot of these untapped potentials to the surface, and we really have to, as a leader, start making those decisions to achieve these sort of trust, right? So trust is something that will not go away, but the trust complexity is changing, and we really have to get ahead of that and capture those trust mechanisms, so that way, even if we have built all this trust over time, we don't want it to plateau, or we don't want it to go down the slide, right? We want it to go up incrementally, exponentially, whatever the case is. but trust is always going to be the big concerns for all the businesses going forward.
Yes, and it's very easy to break. No matter how much you build on it, it can be, gone like that. So I like what you said about the 6 generations. That's why for providing upskilling opportunities, like you mentioned, the older generations might not have the same needs as younger generations. Younger generations might be able to learn on their own or build stuff on their own and kind of, you know, do that. Whereas the older generations kind of might need more of an organized path to learning. And also you would have to know about learning techniques and how different people learn. So that would be also, something that it would get
Um,
very long, honestly, trying to see all the generations and all the people and all the learning initiatives of how do people learn. But I think that once you get like a flow of things and build that trust, then employees will just kind of get on. And also you can reward employees for upskilling. You can reward employees for their training and for their motivation to learn. I think that's also a very good way to build their trust and build their motivation and kind of help them to become resilient. Okay.
um, Before you go to the next
Yes.
slide, I just want to talk about the recognize and reward effort. I think the most important part about that is it has to be given quickly. Um,
Yes.
so, in order to help motivate and move towards building trust and provide upskill opportunities, that reward section is kind of pivotal on where that employee might go towards learning or the implementation of AI. Because if they're not rewarded for their efforts in a timely manner, they could lose motivation.
Yes.
And that reward has to come from someone higher than management, because it could make the employee feel like, all right, they're just see I'm doing a good job. But if someone that they don't see on a day-to-day basis rewards them on something they just completed, it completely changes things for them on their perspective. So it's kind of a organizational whole in the reward system, because it has to be given quick and by someone of high importance outside of the management team. So
Yes,
that
definitely.
helps build the trust of that what they're learning and what they're doing is actually going to make a difference in their job. That's all I want to say.
Agree. There's also, yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point made. Also, so I know there's some like HR tools that actually do that. You kind of put in the information and it kind of notifies whoever is in charge, whoever is in the position to reward. Okay, this employee needs to be rewarded so that they don't burn out quicker or they stay motivated and productive. So I'm not sure how they work because most of them are, you have to pay for them and have a full membership. But I think that that might also be alongside with the data side of
Yeah.
things,
It doesn't have to necessarily be something tangible. It could just be words of affirmation, like, "Hey, I saw what you did. You did a good job. Keep doing what you're doing." But those words has to come from someone that they don't work with on a day-to-day basis, someone that they actually look up to, or might be hesitant to talk to because of their position within the organization. And I think that helps. For example, when in my job, I deal with the judge. Judge is my boss, but my participants never talk to the judge because that's the judge. And so when the judge recognizes their progress in our program, you can see them light up and become more motivated to keep doing what they're doing. So it's a interesting dynamic of the trust and the upscaling and that medium point where you're working towards something and you get rewarded or recognized for it instantly. It changes things in a whole new tenfold. So I just wanted to put that little point in.
Yes, very good point, Bessie. Thank you for your input. Okay, moving on. I think this is my favorite part. So the AI powered data. So how can we, as change management, know what are the next steps to take? So what you can do with AI, or data analysis projects, machine learning projects, all that kind of stuff, is something called sentiment analysis. So like what we mentioned in the beginning of how to take all of the employee feedback, you're not going to have time to go to everyone and talk to everyone and conduct interviews with every single individual to see what is the problem, what is something you would like more of, or what is your likes, what is your dislikes, what is your concerns. So you can kind of get an employee feedback data set and to combine all of these so you can see, okay, how are we going to make change initiatives? Where is support needed? And is there resistance to change? And how can we help? What areas are showing this, and what teams or what fields are showing resistance? And what can we do? Something that I recently learned about was recommender systems. So what this does is it can recommend career opportunities for employees, whether that's training, upskilling opportunities, just like learning, or even support within their career development. It can enhance employee experience and suggest resources that work. It can also help team building. So for example, which members can work together better. So one person is interested in this, when another person is interested in this, and these two can come together to make a final product. And then predictive analytics is you want to predict what is going to happen. Do we have the money? Do we have the resources to not predict in a way? You want to take that risk. So what it gives you is, okay, if you take step B, you're going to get this to C. So you want to know, okay, what is this step going to take me? So what it can do is potential risks and successes. Risks are going to make you lose money. So you kind of want to get away from that. You don't want to waste time and money because, the world is moving fast. So you don't want to be behind. You can predict employee engagement with your training initiatives, and impact on KPIs are also very important things. So predictive analytics is a huge benefit to how data can be used within change management techniques.
I think, I just want to point out that, if you look at the number 1, 2, and 3, it kind of reminds me of past, present, and future.
Yes.
Sentiment analysis is a past tense, as in it has been around for a while, right? It just hasn't been tapped into highly because of how much it cost. But the cost of it today is very low. It's coming down on price a lot. To have it implemented in an enterprise, it creates a huge insight provider that you mentioned earlier about surveys, right? If you read a survey and you don't use sentiment analysis, you're going to spend 5 hours on reading surveys, but sentiment analysis can do that survey analysis for you and provide that to you in 1 minute. huge difference in time saving, and the return on investment is right up front with sentiment analysis. And there's probably not many ways to break down sentiment analysis, but this recommender system is what's advanced today, and it's what's being really coming to the surface, where it's not about shopping and saying, if you buy this clothes, you should buy this shoes with it. These recommender systems are using sentiment analysis to figure out if this person has this sort of cognitive capabilities, what else can this person do, and who can be a good fit to work with this person? Sort of going back to that upskilling Chinese Mandarin speaking person who's very sharp in mathematics and cognitive capabilities, that you would like this person to actually work with somebody who's not really that sharp in the other side of the equation, but they together can work on some things that will change the game, right? really create a good return on investment. So now you're doing predictive analytics. How do you do matchmaking inside of an organization? We know that from our dating apps, but dating apps uses the same algorithm that a business will use to figure out, if this 5-6 individuals, we talked about team dynamic very early on, if this 5-6 individuals have been working together and this is the product that